this painting was inspired by ideas I had in Jordan when I was travelling there, and it's called Compass Box. And I spent a few days teaching art classes in a refugee school out in the desert. And I brought a couple of big cases full of art materials for the kids. Their ages, I was teaching different classes, ages sort of 5 to 14, and doing different activities on different days. But the first day, I turned up with a plan of what I was going to do and coloured pencils for everybody to do their own work. And one kid was very excited because he'd come in with his own pencil case with all his own pencils and rubbers and things. And he was really keen to work with that. But when I sat down with him, the hasp, the hinges on the pencil case had broken. But of course I'm travelling around and sketching and drawing, as well as doing the teaching work in the school. And I had some spare pencil cases, so I just emptied out my new pencil case and gave him mine and swapped it with his old broken one. So he was delighted, not least because the new pencil case had a little compass on it, which showed north, south, east and west. And he was playing around with it and showing it to his friends. Anyway, I used that pencil case that this boy had given me for the next 2 weeks as I travelled around Jordan, sketching and painting. And then when I returned home, I was working on new artworks inspired by my travels in Jordan. And I'd started incorporating bits of material that I'd picked up at transit points into a number of paintings, and had been creating these kind of box constructions. And I had this old broken pencil case that I'd been given, and I thought, yeah, I'd like to just try playing around with that and use it as the base as one of these paintings. And then in the painting, I layered in a collage of fabric, discarded clothing material, and paper labels, tickets that I just picked up in various places as I travelled around the transit points, and created this textured, layered effect which broke up the painting that I then did on top of it. And into the box I included a whinchat, so a migratory bird that we have here in the summer, and it migrates to Africa. And in Eastern Europe, they migrate down through Jordan and Syria into Africa. Again, I've used stencil work and Arabic design in the artwork. And I've layered up paint, quite thick textured paint, to disguise some of the texture of the fabric material so that it's partly visible, partly obscured. So right at the beginning, I painted the whole thing with gold, thinking it would be a kind of like an icon, like a medieval iconographic piece of artwork. And then it changed, and I started incorporating the kind of pinky, reddish sand colours that you'd find in the desert if you scraped off the surface layer of brownish grey sand. You'd find this pinkish red sand underneath. So I've got a friend who's studying whinchats through St Andrews University, and they're putting tiny transmitters on these birds and tracking them as they move from Europe down into Africa. And these guys are plotting the routes that they take across the Mediterranean. And of course these routes are exactly the same routes as people are taking in their migrations. It's the shortest route with stopovers across islands. And then he's tracking them as they travel through Libya. So these birds are travelling through war zones and across militarised borders. And you can see where they stop off in the desert. They're stopping off at these little oases. And of course that's the same routes that people are taking when they're crossing from Central Africa into Libya. They're taking these transit routes that link up from one oasis to another. So one of the things I'm looking at in the project is that climate change creating increased desertification, which means that birds like the whinchat are having to cross larger areas of desert as the desert advances further north and south. It creates this greater distance for the birds to migrate. But also on that transit route through the desert, the oases are being overexploited because there are more people using them, because there's more stress on them, and the oases are turning dry. So there's nowhere for the birds, and also for people who are having to migrate. There's no places for the people to stop and more safely make these journeys.